Hello, hello. Perfect. So thank you very much for having me here today. My name is Philip, and I'm gonna talk about how you can use emotions in order to make like your marketing and the things you want to communicate a bit more effective. So let's start off. I'm Philip. I founded a food and beverage brand called Ayoka in 2019, back when I was 18 years old. And basically our mission is it to make people happy, to make people joyous. And we're doing that by selling drinks and chewing gum at the moment that contain ingredients that naturally enhance your mood. So that's basically our functional claim. We sell in over 1,500 stores in over 4 countries. And basically all the marketing that we do is directed to broad audiences. And direct to consumer, and not like just some niche clients. So basically, everybody, like we wanna reach everyone, and like the total population at the end with our claim. So one of the first things I can give you is 99.9% of people do not care about 99.9% of brands. There's only a handful of brands that are actually relevant and actually, are charged and relevant to, I'd say, the average Joe person. Most brands are completely irrelevant, and many mistakes I see from like other people, what they do in their marketing is they think they're too relevant. They think people care too much about what they do and their brand, and there's only very, very few brands that actually can pull this off. And the question is like, what do all strong brands actually have in common? And that's emotions. Every brand that's actually relevant, like I said, there are only a handful of them, are emotionally charged. You can give an example like, I know, Red Bull sells energy, Apple sells innovation and like not computers or phones, or Rolex sells status and not watches. I mean, if I could go to a watchmaker and commission a watch that's more expensive than an entry-level Rolex, but I will never be able to sell it as easily as in Rolex because it doesn't sell and convey the status that the brand is. So all these brands, they use tools in order to make it a bit more emotionally charged. So here's a stat from Nielsen. I don't know if you know Nielsen, it's probably the most well-known research institute for FMCG products. And they basically made a study which is somewhat representative of different advertising. And they map the emotive power and the favorability of that certain ad. So there is a correlation of the R value is 0.59. And what they found is like the correlation, the more emotionally charged an advertising was, the better it performed on average. And I'm pretty sure if they would have increased the sample size, then the R value would have gone up. So there is always a bit of a correlation between like emotional strength and the success of your ad. A lot of the things I'm basically getting my information of is from Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel Prize winning psychologist, and he's done most of his research on basically decision making and like how people make their decisions. And what he says is that 90% of all decisions that we do every day are based on emotions, while only 10% are actually based on logic. So let's say like 9 out of 10 decisions that you do in your daily life are actually done by your gut, like your instinct, and not by the logics that you do. And that's one of the most important things you have to understand, that humans are emotional beings and not logical beings. And in order to illustrate that, what I mean to a certain degree, I'm going to tell you a story, or a made-up story, basically. So imagine there's Bob. He's a middle-aged, married executive at a large corporation, and basically you're your average bloke, your average Joe. And recently Bob has faced a big problem. And Bob is going through a textbook example of a midlife crisis. So his life is not making him happy anymore. He doesn't know what he wants to do. And he's basically looking for anything that he thinks can cause him joy in his life. So Bob gets an idea and basically does what I'd say most of the middle-aged people do when they go through a midlife crisis. He wants to buy the car of his dreams. It's his favorite car. He always wanted to drive it. He always wanted to own it. And he's now made out and decided to visit a car dealership where he wants to buy the car he always wanted to buy. In the car dealership, he meets John, the car salesman. And he asks, do you have my car? And John says, yes, of course, we have that car. And I'll suggest you something. The first thing you should do is take it for a test drive. So Bob agrees. He takes the car out of the car dealership and takes it for a test drive through the countryside, through his favorite routes. And he loves the experience. It really makes him happy. But there's a problem, because when he comes back, he's not sure if he actually wants to buy the car. I mean, he really much enjoyed it, but he's not sure if it's the right decision to make. So then the car salesman, John, comes up with an idea. And he tells him about a great financing plan that they have for the car at 0% interest. The absolutely great mileage the car has, because other sports cars have a way higher mileage, and the sports car he chose has like one of the best mileage out of it. And he tells him that owning a second car gives him more flexibility, because right now he shares a car with his wife, and by introducing a second car, even if it's a sports car, they are a bit more flexible when things that they decide of what they want to do. So then, Bob agrees, and now the question is, why do you think was the reason he decided to buy the car? The reason was the test drive. He knew he wanted to buy the car when he took it out for a drive. His instinct told him, I want this, I want to own this car. And then afterwards, he actually decided to buy it. And that's one of the things also Daniel Kahneman found out. Most of our decisions are made subconsciously by our emotions, by our gut feeling. And then afterwards, we use logic to justify the feelings that we had. So he knew he wanted to buy the car, and then he resorted back to logic to make it seem like it's not the emotional choice, but the logical choice. So also Daniel Kahneman came up with basically a theory, or basically described it as, every human has two systems. One is the logic system, and the other one is the emotional system. And like I said, most decisions we do, where we want to eat, what jewelry we want to wear, what things we prefer when we're talking about branding, is done by instinct, by emotions. And then when that system is basically overloaded, then goes back to the logic system. Logic system does things like calculating, Excel sheet, that's actually things you have to think about and rationalize. But like everything, or most of the things we do, are actually done based on emotions. So when Bob comes home to his wife, who is absolutely furious about the fact that he decided to buy a car without consulting her, he's not going to tell his wife, I actually bought the car because it makes me feel good. He's going to tell his wife about the great financing plan he received, the mileage it has, and he's going to try and persuade her that he has a lot more flexibility in when owning two cars. And that's basically the things he's going to lead in, and not about how the car made him feel. So another great thing in advertising is, what many people don't really understand is, that's why at the beginning I said most people don't care about what you do and your brand. Emotions are not just basically used for our decision making. Emotions are also used in order, or are a very powerful tool in order to convey information. That's going back to the study I showed at the beginning. You can see, emotions are the things that actually make you remembered, and not the actual claims and USPs you try to communicate. In order to prove that, I'm going to show you two ads I created for our brand. One is going to be a bit more emotionally charged. The other one's not going to be emotional at all. And let's see what kind of information you will be able to retrieve from it. Let me start. So this is the first one. I'm going to show it only for a couple of seconds, so you take a look at it. So now the question is, how many of you know how many calories we have in a beverage? And how many of you would have known that I didn't actually put this information on the slide? Okay, also none. So I'm going to show you now the second one. This is going to be a bit more emotionally charged. So this comes number 2. So how many of you do you think will now know where you can buy our product? I guess at least some. Because, So first things foremost, I did not actually commit the crime of indecent exposure in order to prove my point here at Wirtschaftskammer. It's photoshopped. I was actually wearing a short, and that's legal, and I checked it. So it's photoshopped, but basically it all made you, I saw your eyes lit up. I saw most of you, have an emotional reaction to that image. And the question is, it's not about exclusively positive emotions, it's about creating emotions at all. So, I don't know, some of you made it feel uncomfortable, other of you made it feel a bit more embarrassed. Some of you might have been more surprised about the fact, but I can say like 9 out of 10 of you made it feel something. And that made you remember the actual thing I wanted you to remember. And now if you look both of them next to each other, if it would be logical beings, all these things at the bottom are actually USPs you think would be more valuable for you to remember, to know, when considering buying our product, if you consider engaging with our brand. At the beginning, I purposely chose just where we are available, which doesn't give you any value at all. Like it's no value, you just know you can buy it there, but it doesn't give you any value about the brand, about our product, and about what we do. Well, the bottom does anything. So like I said, if you would be a logical thinking being, it would make more sense if you would have at least gained some of the bottom part of it, and not the thing I actually told you where we are available at. So probably now I'm going to talk about the most important takeaway, basically, when you try to create advertising, and that's basically one thing. When you want to create an ad or something where you communicate something, where you do something, instead of trying to focus on what you want people to know, the first thing, it's always the first thing you want to think about is, how do you want to make the person feel? And how you want to make the person feel is not always necessary, has to be in line with how your brand's supposed to act, but how you want to make the person feel is also the immediate fact in that situation. How do you want to make them feel? I can give you an example. If you sell vacuums, you're not going to want to tell people, this vacuum cleaner is 8% more efficient than the rest on the market. You want to show them, I don't know, a picture under their bed with all the dust, and you want to make them feel disgusted. You don't want people to feel disgusted about your brand, but you want to make them feel disgusted in that moment so that every time they feel disgusted, they think about your brand. It's the same thing if you're a mechanic. You want to maybe show people shock videos of car crashes or everything that can go wrong, if they don't service the car. That doesn't mean you want people to be shocked and infuriated about your brand, but you want to shock them in that moment, because then every time they step into the car and they have, a bad feeling about their car, they're going to think about you as a mechanic. So the question is not always about, the brand. Of course, every brand wants to somewhat deliver status and emotions, but when advertised, you can use small emotional cues in order to make the people feel something in the moment, and then you attach your information so that you stay remembered in that instance. So basically, I know I might have been a bit shorter. That was it for me. For those of you who enjoyed it, here's my LinkedIn in case you want to send me invites or messages or anything. And for those of you who really, really, really enjoyed it, here's my PayPal in case you want to send me donations. You feel free to do so. Thank you very much.
Give him a big hand of applause.